Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to talk again today about the spiritual side of this because people have been bringing this up with me in coaching sessions, and I'm still kind of going through my own journey of discovery, I guess, or rediscovery myself. And so I thought I would address this again in a video. I do want to mention that I'm doing one-on-one coaching. So if you are looking to chat with me, I have a free 15-minute consultation. I do 30-minute sessions, 60-minute sessions, and I offer those at lower rates than other places online. I also have put together 4-session packages for those who may want to meet more regularly, and I offer those at a further discounted rate. I will put the link to my online booking calendar in the description of this video, as well as the link to my website if you want to learn more about my story and how I got to where I am now through antidepressant withdrawal, benzos, and several adverse reactions to different classes of drugs. You can check that out on my website, and you can also book sessions there. I have made long form videos talking about the details of my journey, or journeys. I guess I had a dual withdrawal. So feel free to check those out on this channel if you want more detailed information about my journey. So back to this topic, spiritual journey. So I want to preface this. Maybe I'll give it a trigger warning because I don't want it to trigger you if this is something you're really struggling with. And I also want to say that I'm in no way, shape, or form like a theologian or, do I consider myself a spiritual leader or anything like that. This is definitely my own journey. And I think a lot of people could find this relatable, again, because people are bringing this topic up to me quite often, either through messaging like my email or in sessions. And again, I want to address it. So I'm also going to be speaking about the Christian concept of God in this video. That's just because that's the one I'm the most familiar with, and what most people are bringing to my attention is this concept of the Christian God. So I'm not speaking about other religions and how, their God or how they perceive God. This is just from the Christian perspective. So this is a really loaded topic because it's talking about spiritual things that are deeply rooted in a lot of people, and including myself. So I was raised in a very conservative Christian evangelical family, and throughout my life I definitely was a believer and someone who went to church regularly, Bible studies, all of those things. I did come to a point when I was about 24 where I was like, do I really believe this? I'm not sure. So I was in university at the time, and I was studying world religions. And so I thought maybe my beliefs maybe align with something else. I've always believed what I've been taught to believe and raised to believe, but maybe that's not what I want to continue to believe. So I explored other religions, and then I ended up coming back to Christianity and, was living out my faith. Absolutely not perfectly, but it was something that I believed all of my life. And when I went into withdrawal in 2018, throughout the journey, because it took me about 4.5 years to feel like I was starting to recover, in that process, it became clear to me that I was very upset and frustrated with my experience, considering I had been a believer my whole life. And if you're someone going through that yourself, whether you're right in the middle of acute withdrawal, whether you're a little bit further along, or you're still tapering, or wherever you are at in your journey and you've been affected by these drugs, it's really, I think, natural to question your beliefs. Because if you think about it, the Christian God, the way that we're taught to perceive him, is a God of love, peace, justice, omnipotent, all-powerful. And when you go through this and you all of a sudden are full of terror and akathisia, and your mind has been hijacked, and you just live in this constant, perpetual state of fear, and maybe you're like me, you're on your knees, you're on your face, you're pounding the floor, and you're like, God, where are you? I need you to intervene. I need you to save me. I need you to change this, heal me, or take me home. A lot of people go through that process in this journey. And again, it's really understandable for you to then be almost more upset, not just because of what happened to you, and again, I've made videos about the grief process and how a lot of people go through the steps of grief in this, the denial or the shock part, and the bargaining and the anger and the depression and the acceptance. And there's a lot of anger, and rightfully so. I mean, people are angry with their doctors, big pharma, themselves, God. I mean, this is a powerful response to what's going on. And so, again, if you've been raised in the Christian faith and you are going through this most difficult struggle of your life, and especially since it can last a really long time for people, it really becomes difficult to understand, or it really makes you maybe question where is God? Like, why is he not intervening? And I certainly went through this, and it's changed me profoundly in many ways. And I talk about how this journey can really bring you to a place of feeling more grateful for your life, changing your perspective on what's actually worth stressing over, and just like you have a renewed appreciation for the little things that you often weren't able to do in the midst of your withdrawal and the adverse reaction chaos. And so there's definitely a lot of good things that come out of this when you recover. But even for me, I shared in my other video about the spiritual side of this, that I went to church for the first time in 10 years. And although I've become a lot more softened, I guess, like I've lost a lot of the anger and most of my symptoms. I am left with some tinnitus, as I've shared before. I was able to sit in the service and feel more connected, I guess, or open to connection to God and to wanting to have some type of relationship again, or spiritual faith or whatever. But there still was this nagging thing in my mind, like, where were you? Like, I deserve answers. And if you think about it, in your earthly life, when you have relationships, especially romantic ones, and if you've been with someone for years or decades, you've established this relationship. You kind of know your role within it and their role within it, and you kind of understand the dynamic, and you're, for the most part, at peace with it, and that's why you're staying in that relationship. It's meeting needs, and it's feeling good, and all of the things. And then if that other person did something like, say, took off on you just overnight. That happened to me. So my dad took off after 30 years of being with my mom just overnight. He just up and moved across the country. We didn't really have any time to process it, to say goodbye. I wasn't even living in the same city as my parents at that time. And so it was a really gut-wrenching, to say that it was a traumatic thing for me, because he essentially not only left my mom, but us as well. I was 26 at the time that he left, and I never got an answer. And he, years later, came back and is now with someone else, but I never got answers to, why did you do that? And I feel like in order to have restoration in a relationship that has had something traumatic happen, typically if you were to enter back into a relationship with that person in any capacity, you would need some type of closure, some type of answers as to, why did you do what you did? And I didn't receive that in my own relationship with my dad. And then circling back to God, it's really understandable for you to want those answers. So that, even though I feel way better, I still am like, where were you? And why didn't you intervene? And again, like, my perception of this has changed, I think, now because I have a child. And so a lot of times, we're thinking about God like Father God. We say Father God. And he's supposed to be like a father figure, if you think, about how we even address God. And so when I think about being a mother myself, if my child was suffering severely for a few years and I had the power to take that away from her, absolutely 100%, I think it would be almost psychotic for me not to, or cruel for me not to take that away from her when I had the ability or the power to do so. And so people can come back and say, well, maybe it was just a test, or maybe you were supposed to learn something in that process. And I mean, I can understand that to a degree, I guess. If I'm just open to that concept of, okay, maybe there was something I was supposed to learn from that. And I do feel like I've learned things from my withdrawal, for sure. But I'm like, was it really necessary for me to have went through this for 4.5 years when he had the ability to stop that sooner? And with my own daughter, I mean, if I was like, oh, she needs to learn a lesson, I can't conceive of, okay, I'm going to allow her the worst suffering of her life for almost 5 years in order to teach her a lesson. I mean, that to me is really a really hard thing to conceive of. And so again, I'm still not really sure where I stand in my spiritual journey, in my relationship with God. This has definitely shaken it to its core. I think it's, from my own perspective, it's easier to trust because a lot of, it is based on faith. It's easier to have that faith and to trust when you don't have something profoundly life-shifting happen. And I mean, everybody has difficult things in their lives. I'm not trying to discount that. But I think even when you have, I went through a few different deaths in my life of young, close friends and, family members that I was very close to. And for me, I was able to, it can be easier in some ways. I'm not trying to take away from people's struggles through losing someone at all. But I'm just saying, like, at least for me, it was easier for me to conceive of, well, at least they're now home with the Lord, or at least they're now at peace or resting or whatever. I think it's a little bit easier to wrap your head around it and give yourself some comfort in knowing, okay, they're home now. At least that was my own perception and the way that I grieved. But with this, you don't have that same, you can't sort of compartmentalize or justify it, I guess, with something like that. It's just that, okay, it's still, no matter which way I look at it, it makes no sense to me. And so you have to unravel that. And again, I'm still not at a place where I've come to, I guess, a conclusion or peace about why God allowed, the suffering to happen for so long and as long as it did in my own experience. And so I just wanted to say that if you're struggling with that as well, again, wherever you are in your journey, if you feel like you're closer to recovery or you're in acute or you're tapering or whatever, and if you have a background of faith, again, it's really, and again, I think it's really normal and a good thing to question, because it can deepen your faith if you end up coming back to it, if you've went through something so difficult, or it can cause you to question and maybe be like, why do I believe what I believe? And this is definitely the situation where you're going to be questioning that. And again, it can lead you into a deeper relationship or a deeper faith in the long run, or again, it can cause you to be like, why do I believe what I believe? And is this what I want to continue to believe? So it's a difficult thing for people to process. And I completely understand, because again, I'm still on that journey myself, even though I feel like I'm not in the suffering that I was from these drugs for a very long time. And another thing that's really difficult too, if you come from a background of like Christian faith, is, at least in my experience, I was convinced for a while that the extreme mental torment that I was experiencing from these drugs was some type of demonic oppression or some type of evil influence. And so I went to multiple pastors, multiple churches. I was anointed with oil. I was, prayed over, prayed for, and it just was not changing the situation. And I had well-meaning family members say, this is evil influence. We need to get this out of you. We need to pray for that. And it never changed the situation. And so that can also be something that's very difficult for you to process when you're getting these messages like, this is evil spirits, this is whatever, and then praying about it doesn't change the situation. So it can cause you to be even more desperate, or being like, why isn't God intervening? If this was something evil going on, then why isn't he intervening? That, and like, for me, it was positive in the sense that it made then more sense to me to really sink in at a gut level that this was the drugs all along. But I had to go through that process. And I've even had people come to me and say, when they're in a window, they had, again, probably well-meaning church members, church friends say to them, well, God intervened, God changed the situation. And it can be frustrating because the person on our end of it to be like, no, this is just the pattern of recovery for most people. And so the spiritual stuff can get intertwined in a way that is uncomfortable and frustrating, and can add a layer of suffering essentially in this experience. So I just wanted to say that, and again, talk about more talk more about my journey through this spiritual aspect of it and speak to others who may be experiencing similar things or similar struggles throughout their journey. So let me know in the comments if this makes sense for you, if this is something that you're also trying to come to terms with and figure out in your own way or in your own experience. So yeah, let me know how that journey is going and any other questions you may have. Again, I think I am going to do a live Q&A, but I will send some advance notice so you have a chance to find out about it and hop on when I do go live. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay, and I'll see you next time. Bye.